The line of dialogue that will be best remembered from Ron Howard's absolutely thrilling new film is a slight variation on the truth. Houston, we have a problem, says one of the film's three endangered astronauts. Although, Houston, we've had a problem, is what Jim Lovell actually said. It's a small but important change, one more way that the film unfolds with perfect immediacy, drawing viewers into the nail biting suspense of a spellbinding true story. You can know every glitch that made this such a dangerous mission, and the film will still have you by the throat. And that is from the review in 1995 of the film Apollo 13 in the New York Times that was written by Janet Maslin. Hello and welcome to Total 90s Recall. I'm Molly.
And I'm Chloe.
And between my time on set and Chloe's amazing insight as an editor, we are asking ourselves if 90s films really were as good or bad as we remember or their reputation implies. And today we are doing Apollo 13. Chloe, what's your relationship with the film? Was this your first time watching it? Was this a rewatch?
It's my first time watching it with the caveat that I saw the ending on telly at Christmas,
Oh,
like this past
oh,
Christmas.
it's ruined.
So, well, I mean, let's face it, it's based on a real story.
Yeah.
So you kind of know from
Yeah.
history what actually happened. So I saw it from, and obviously, spoiler alert for the entire discussion. I saw it from the moment when Jim Lovell's son is sitting in
Mm.
his school, his military school,
Mhm.
watching being made to watch the re-entry of his
His
father's.
father potentially died.
Exactly, and I have thoughts on all of that. Uh, and so everyone's nervously watching the footage, and they're kind of going, "Well, if we don't hear from them right about now, then they're probably dead in a fiery ball of hell." And then, of course, it's all fine. We hear the voice of Tom Hanks, and they come back online, and la la la. So I saw basically the last 5-10 minutes at Christmas.
So this was I think this is my first time watching it as well. Obviously, as the review refers to, definitely remember Houston, we have a problem. Like in the zeitgeist, I don't know if it's the same here, but in the US, it was like for like 2 years, 3 years, a decade, I don't remember. Anytime there was like a problem, it was Houston, we have a problem.
I feel like everyone says it all the time. It's just
Yes,
in
they still say it, I think.
yeah.
I think it's died though in the last few
Now
years.
that everything's a problem all the time, everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's a problem everywhere. But like this was really the first time I like sat down. I remember sitting down and
Mm.
watching it. And I told my husband that. And he's like, "What? I can't believe that you never watch Apollo 13." And I was like, "No, I don't think so." That's why I'm doing this podcast.
It's a film that lots of blokes have watched,
Yes,
you know?
exactly. Yes.
And what would be the kind of girl equivalent? Not to gender stereotype, but
Let's do it. Why not? I mean, any Jane Austen, probably, right?
yeah, yeah, quite probably. Like for me and my generation, the 1995 BBC adaptation of Pride and
Right.
Prejudice, we've all seen it. It's like written into our DNA. We all have thoughts and feelings about it. I would hesitate to say that any of my male friends have seen it. They don't. They're vaguely aware of it, maybe.
I would say for me, it might be Titanic, but I do think like guys saw that too. Like I feel like everybody saw that, but
Oh, I
especially
think I
girls.
think everyone's
Yeah,
seen
everyone
Titanic.
saw that. Maybe Romeo and Juliet or like 10 Things
Mm,
I Hate About You, which are definitely obviously future episodes.
mm.
But I do feel like a lot of girls of my generation were like suddenly into Shakespeare because of Romeo plus Juliet. And the blokes were
Yes.
like, "What? He's what? I don't get it." Let's go back to our time machine in space. 1995. Hoo, hoo. So this was released in the US. It was June 30th, 1995. Just a few months later in the UK, on the 22nd of November 1995, a $52 million budget. Do you even want to take a guess at its box office worldwide? 52 million. It was his budget.
$300 million.
Very close. 355. So one could say
Wow.
a modest success. It was the third highest grossing film of 1995 behind Die Hard with a Vengeance and Toy Story, which
Hmm.
of course also starred Tom Hanks.
It's just a moneymaker.
Yeah, well, listen. So this is the year after Forrest Gump, which he won an Oscar for. The year
Mm.
before that, he had won Philadelphia, an Oscar for Philadelphia. So this is like peak Tom Hanks. I don't know if Tom Hanks has stopped peaking, to be honest,
Yeah, I
but
feel
this
like
is like
he just keeps on peaking. He keeps on
yes,
peaking. His
yeah,
career is like one of those vomit comet jets that just keeps
yes,
on doing parabolic curves, just
exactly.
up and up and up.
Yes, and if you don't know what that refers to, listeners, you're about to. Anyway, so starring Tom Hanks, we already said directed by Ron Howard. It also stars Gary Sinise. Again, this is a year after Forrest Gump. Now, when they would have started filming this, Forrest Gump wouldn't have been released yet because Forrest Gump was released in September '94. And if they started filming this, he would have already been casted. But I just thought that was interesting. They worked together back to back, and they apparently are really good friends still. A lot of love there, a lot of positive masculinity between those two. This is our second Tom Hanks film, as we just did Sleepless in Seattle recently, and this is also our second Kevin Bacon film because we did A Few Good Men earlier this year, and he's also in the film. Ed Harris, who got multiple nominations for this film, Bill Paxton, RIP, Kathleen Quinlan, nominated for a Golden Globe and an Oscar. It was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, Best Visual Effects. We'll get to it. 2 wins, editing and sound. Few BAFTA noms, 5 wins, 2, including production design, which I think that's pretty valid, pretty good production design and special effects. Clay, what's the log line?
The IMDb logline is NASA must devise a strategy to return Apollo 13 to Earth safely after the spacecraft undergoes massive internal damage, putting the lives of the 3 astronauts on board in jeopardy. That is pretty accurate. Well done, IMDb.
Congratulations. You got one.
It's a tightly focused film, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really does. It's largely 3 locations. It's mission control in Houston. It's that spacecraft, and then it's the homes of Jim Lovell's wife and the other astronaut's wife, but not Kevin Bacon's home because he doesn't have a wife. So there's no one to mourn him if he dies.
No. First bachelor in space, apparently.
Yes, yes.
They made a point. Which again, Gary Sinise's character was like, no, it's supposed to be me again. I was supposed to be the first bachelor in space. So yeah, why are we doing this? I'm the one that suggested we do this because Artemis 2 just got back from space. First time that humans have been to the other side of the moon, the dark side of the moon, as they say.
Can I just ask about this
Yeah.
then? Can you
Yeah.
explain it to me? Because in this film, do they not slingshot around the dark
They
side of the moon?
do.
But they're looking at the far side of the moon
Yeah.
when they're slingshotting around it.
Well, yeah, and they
So
lose they lose contact for what it was at like
yeah,
9 minutes
so
or
that's
whatever it
exactly
was.
like with Artemis, but they're closer. I asked Tris about this, and he said maybe they didn't look out the window.
So Artemis 2 is critical as the first crewed mission to orbit the moon in over 50 years, testing the Orion spacecraft's life support systems with humans on board. It paves the way for future lunar landings, establishes long-term lunar habitation, and serves as a vital stepping stone for sending astronauts to Mars.
But is it the first time that humans have looked at the far side of the moon?
No. No, it's not. It's just first time humans have been there in over 50 years, and they're testing the life support system of the Orion spacecraft.
Still a big achievement. Well
Still,
done.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
first of all, first woman, okay?
Yes.
And
First
also
Canadian.
first Canadian. This is at a time when, North American relations are tense. So yes, Artemis 2, I love you. reminding us of better time. And like my whole, my whole family on my husband's side is like they're like really keen into this. There's just been like texts of fury, and my daughter, she wants to be an not an astronaut, an astronomer.
Stay safely on the ground.
That's exact she doesn't wanna leave her family. That's what she doesn't wanna leave the planet. But it's hopeful. I think at a time with everything going on in the world, it's nice to have this Artemis too, because people are starting to come together. This
Mm.
was an internet, between Canada and America, there's, a support, international support. So I think it's important for things like that. I think it's sad that this is something we were doing 50 years ago and then it stopped. I was just really inspired by Artemis, and I felt like it
Mm.
was kinda in the zeitgeist, and it was never a film I never saw, and I was like, it was always a film on the list. So
Yes.
like, Chloe, watching it for the first time,
Mm.
what were your first reactions? What were your kinda gut impressions?
Well, my expectations, I would tell you about my expectations
Yeah.
because I think I was thinking it was going to be quite a, how to put this? I don't want to say a nerdy film because I
Yeah.
love nerdy films. I think I was expecting it to be very sciencey and I would get
Yes.
left behind. And initially I did feel that. I felt I was getting a bit overwhelmed by the sort of scientific engineering jargon. So
Yeah.
there's lots of talk about powering up the LEM, or they're going on about the reactant valves to the fuel cells,
The
or
amps.
being in gimbal lock. And I
Yeah.
was like, I just don't know what this means. But as the film goes along, I think it actually does a really good job of using things like the TV reporter's commentary or the mission control engineer's dialogue to explain what each engineering problem is, what it means. What it invariably means is a horrifying death
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
can't solve it. And so you're left with a really clear understanding at each point every time
Yeah.
something goes wrong, which happens a lot every 15 minutes. You're left with a really clear understanding of what they need to do, what they're trying to achieve to survive. And so because it's about survival, you're getting really drawn into it. And I was actually edge of your seat gripped by the end, even
Yeah.
though, as I say, I've seen the ending. I literally seen the ending of this film. And also I have the power of the internet, which still just about works, to tell me exactly what is happening. But I was still like, well, maybe they won't make it out alive. Oh
Yeah.
my God. And I also, what I liked about this film is, and I don't know if there's a term for it, but it's a bit like a paperwork movie. But instead of finding some key bit of evidence in a file somewhere that will like blow the case wide
Yeah.
open, it's more that you're waiting for the astronauts and the engineers to improvise some kind of key bit of engineering solution that will save their lives. So it's like paperwork, but like, I don't know, maybe we could call it like a screwdriver
Yeah.
movie
That
or
yeah.
something.
I like screwdriver
Yeah.
a screwdriver movie. Like it.
That kind of thing, like a wrench movie. And yeah, I guess like the relief I felt when Gary Sinise works out that he can reverse the flow on the LEM power supply to gain 4 crucial amps,
Yes.
and the music starts to stir up really hopefully. Like, I
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known going into that
No.
what the hell that was,
No.
but I was gripped.
Yeah. I thought the same thing. I'm like, I don't exactly understand completely what's happening, but I'm invested and I'm still invested. I get that this is important, and I get that, the filmmaking is really good about using those visuals to show like what they
Mm,
need to do. And when you're taking, technical material, which this is very technical material, it's really good writing and filmmaking when you're able to distill it down and people still care.
yeah.
For me, I, maybe this is just me, and it was like too built up in my head, but the whole Houston, Houston, we have a problem. That wasn't as dramatic as I was expecting. Or it didn't hit
Mm.
me. It just hit me a little differently. And maybe it's because I was expecting it, you
You were
know?
waiting for it. I was like, "Oh, this is that when that happened."
Like, oh, this is
Oh,
that
this is
movie.
the moment, the
Yeah.
famous moment when that
I
happened.
don't know. It just hit me differently than I was expecting.
Yeah. Were you expecting, like, a dramatic dolly zoom? Crash zoom into his
I think
face. "Houston, zoom. We have a
I
problem."
think I was expecting terrible filmmaking, which I'm so sorry, Ron Howard. You are I
There's not
know
much
that
space for a dolly
I
zoom.
know. You are better than that, and I know that, but I kind of was expecting that. But I also was surprised. Yes, Tom Hanks is the lead. and it's based off of Jim Lovell's book, who he plays. But I thought it was a much more ensemble piece than I was expecting. When Jim Lovell was writing this, and he actually had Kevin Costner, he wanted Kevin Costner to play
Mm.
him. Tom Hanks eventually got it because he really wanted it, and he had a lot of knowledge of the Apollo missions and space. Kevin Costner would I think would give it a much different feel, and I
Mm.
could see it being much more about Kevin Costner.
I think Tom Hanks is a really he's just such a likable guy
Yeah.
and actually I think it works quite well for that kind of role because I was quite struck by a moment late on in the film where they're showing a previous interview he's done where he's talking about how he survived a
Yeah.
flight where he was lost over I think the Sea of Japan. He managed to see some algae that was glowing in the dark and that gave him a sort of path to landing or whatever it was. And it made me think, God, people had to be so bloody brave then.
Yeah.
And going up in those lunar modules, I mean, those things are kind of a bit like spit and sawdust.
Oh my god.
I mean, one of the things that the facts that keep on kind of coming up for me is the fact that a pocket calculator that you would have like in your pencil case in the 1990s had more computing power than the Apollo 11 computer
Yeah.
that got these men on the moon.
Yeah.
So there's something so incredibly brave about them just going into these
Totally.
up into space in these sort of like dodgy. I mean, they weren't dodgy. They were,
But no, I think we could after this film, we can say they were dodgy, Chloe.
they were a bit dodgy, a little bit dodgy. I hope they've got better safety checks now. I think they
Yeah.
do. And I guess what I'm trying to say about Tom Hanks' performance is that he, I think that generation, they were a bit like, it's no bother. I just, casually fight in a war. Then I just casually advance science and technology to a degree that has never been achieved before. I just casually go on a moon mission. Whereas I think generations later, we would when not quite made of the same stuff.
No. No, we'd be like,
And that's a casual
yes.
aspect is
It's
what I
like,
mean.
do we have the right pillows? What kind of diet are we looking at? I gotta make sure I have my smoothie every morning. Um,
Yeah.
and like to your point about the calculators, like the whole word computer came from the fact they literally had people down on Earth computing. It was
Yeah.
women doing the maths
Mm.
and computing. They were the computers because they were
Yes.
computing the numbers to get them to space.
Yes.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
and
There's a whole thing, isn't
yes,
there? Yeah.
yeah.
Women, it was a woman's
It was a
job for
woman's
a while.
job, which we're gonna get into later,
Mm.
but talking about that scene, I love that scene. I think it says something about the direction of filmmaking because, we're seeing that through his wife's eyes,
Mm.
and it was so beautiful, and part of me was like, "I don't think she's heard this." I couldn't tell if she's
No.
heard that story before, and so she's hearing it for the first time, and this is a man that she's loved, and she's, like, learning something more about him, and she
Mm.
never said that. She never it was just in her look, it was in the direction, and
Or
I
she's
just
seeing him afresh, maybe. We don't know,
fresh
but
yeah.
it's nevertheless that thing of like, oh, providence will deliver kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do these men get scared? Like
Yeah.
when they're close to death many times throughout this film, and they are kind of just they obviously there are moments where things get tense, and there
Yeah.
are moments where they're
Yeah.
slightly beginning to lose it, but that's because of oxygen
Yeah.
depletion or CO2 poisoning. But generally speaking, they are very professional, and I think it is that stoicism, and I guess yeah, Hanks and the rest of the cast do the stoicism very nicely.
Ugh, I thought the casting was just amazing, like, everybody was just like, "Mwah, mwah." I can't think of anyone else who would be better. I mean, like, you'll John Travolta, because of his interest in aviation, was interested in being Lovell at one point, and he was politely declined.
I think I read that too, and I
Can
laughed.
you imagine John Travolta? No.
No,
No.
just no. I just don't see him in a spacesuit. Talking about the direction, I think that's the other thing that I thought was really thoughtfully done. It's slightly documentarian. but it's not a shaky cam, but the camera is free to kind of swerve around, and we can kind of get into like how they
Yep.
made it in a moment.
We'll
But
come to it.
there's quite a lot of swooping camera moves, so there is this sort of sense of like, it could go anywhere, both in terms of story and in terms of the fact that you are weightless. But you're getting that not just in the module, but also there'll be a shot that's tight on the faces of the men, and they are all men. We'll come back to it in mission control at the desks. They're concentrating, and then it will kind of sweep out and give us this wider view of lots of men, control in mission control, concentrating. And yeah, that I think that it's quite a loose movement with the camera. I noticed also there's lots of sort of framing through windows. And
Mhm.
there's one key moment, isn't there, where there's this clear parallel. There's a match cut between him gazing wistfully down on Earth through his little, I don't know, I think it's a
Mhm.
lunar excursion module window, and it's he's nearly died several times at this point. And then we cut to Marilyn, his wife, gazing up through her window of their house, looking up. So there's this kind of clear parallel. And then the other thing I thought was interesting, and this was really key to me, and it kind of goes back to my earlier point, there's lots of really extreme close-ups on these dials and these scales. And I think what really stayed with me was this idea that they make you care about the fact that this little needle is going to go up
Yeah.
or down on this scale. And I mean, there was a
This
moment,
shoddy
yeah,
needle.
where I was literally like, will it go? Will it stay under 20 amps?
Yeah.
Will it? Will it not? So, you're just waiting.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah. Or like when the oxygen measure or carbon dioxide measure thing, will it go down and it sort of wavers a bit and you're like, oh, they're all going to
Yeah.
die. And then it kind of slowly goes down. And like to make you care about whether or not a bunch of instrument dials goes one way or another is, I think, it really works in a storytelling way.
Oh, totally. And there's so many shots I loved in this film, like when they're at the mission control and one guy is like talking into the mic and then he has to like sit back and then another guy comes forward and
Oh, yes, that's a lovely bit of choreography, yeah.
lovely bit of choreography and it's so tight and shout out to the cinematographer because everybody's just in frame, in focus. But it also is it's to your point, it's showing kind of the pace of all this is just going fast and fast and they have to react. Ron Howard, the authenticity was really important for him, and he actually didn't use any archival footage. I think
Mm,
there might have been one thing from Walter Cronkite, who I don't know if that means anything to you, but in America, like he's
I've
prolific
heard
news.
of him.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
prolific. He is like really the first newscaster. When you go through journalism school, like you study Walter Cronkite. And Walter Cronkite was still alive and he actually re-recorded some fresh newsreels for this film. But all that news, Ron Howard wanted to make it all like fresh and didn't want to use any
So
archival.
it wasn't
Mm-mm.
archive. Okay. Well, surely the moon landing.
Yes, sorry. I was gonna say that was archive. And
Yes.
then Walter Cronkite talking there,
Mm,
like that newscast when
mm,
Apollo 11, that was archival, but anything to do
mm.
with Apollo 13 was
Yeah.
not
Yes. And
archival.
actually, I read that apparently Buzz Aldrin at a screening turned to Ron Howard. This is according to Ron Howard, of course, and said, "Wow, there's some footage that I've never seen before from the archive." And Ron Howard was like, "It's all shot especially for this film." So
Yeah.
it pulled the wool over the guy
Yes.
that was around at the time.
Yes.
So
But yeah, talking about like the great lengths to get the accuracy, there's actually very little CGI in this film. It was still new. This is 95, as you know from our first episode on Jurassic Park. That was 93. And there's even still very little CGI in that. This is all mostly practical effects. And to get that weightlessness, they would be on wires. And honestly, it would look like shit. And it would be more
mm.
expensive. So what they ended up getting is this aeroplane that actually NASA uses. And it was nicknamed from the cast the Vomit Comet. And it would do these swirls up in the air, and they would get 24 seconds at a time of weightlessness. And that's how they were filming. Anytime you see, a camera that's floating through the air, or when they're playing with their gloves and stuff like that, that's on the vomit comet doing these,
Mm.
loop de loops. But
Yeah.
then there are other scenes where they're, they're in weightlessness. Um, they would then use, close up shots and like not using the vomit comet, and that's how they would get around that. So it's only in scenes where you're seeing things like not in gravity that they're using the vomit comet. And I was like, oh, 24 seconds. That's not very long. But actually, when you look at it, it's like, oh no, actually that does make sense. But they still would do 40 takes in the morning, break for lunch, and then do 40 more takes to get it all
Mm.
in, which is
23 seconds each time,
yeah,
yeah. So
which
they
is
did, like,
insane.
nearly 4 hours worth of filming
Yeah.
time in those 23-second snapshots. And if you watch the behind the scenes footage, they're kinda going, "Right, Tom, can you just roll through that gap? Okay, can you do it again?" So I think they're kind of repeating motions, and maybe then the lines, because there's quite a few scenes where they're kind of strapped in, aren't they? So
Yeah.
they're not floating, where and they can do some of that, separately. But yeah, definitely watching it, I was like, "How are they doing the weightlessness?" Because you're right, like, to CG out those wires, that as they would do now on sets, wasn't really possible then,
Yeah.
and so I was really impressed, like, this thing is turning around in space, it looks like it's weightless. They can't possibly have actually have done that. They actually did that, and that is incredible. That is a real They've really gone to great lengths to do it, and they built the set, the replica of the lunar excursion module and the command module inside the plane.
Yeah.
So that is extreme attempt for authenticity.
Well, and just again, talking about production design, and Ron Howard's, he wanted exact replica of the mission control. He wanted all these things to look how they looked. Thinking about now versus the '90s, budgets are squeezed, but I also wonder, like, if you just made less films, maybe you would have bigger budgets and could stop making shitty films. You know what I mean? Like, this was $50 million to make in the '90s. I don't know what the buying power of that would be today, but it made several times that. And,
Mm.
it made more than 6 times that back. So, it's like,
Yeah.
in all these films now, it's like it's just like a production line. It's almost like golden Hollywood. They'd churn out so many movies a
I
month.
think, in fairness, I have seen a few films that do get the period accuracy.
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan of it, but Martu Supreme, I think they went to great lengths to get costumes and sets and give them a real authenticity. So I do think there is a move for a lot
Yes.
of filmmakers who are more auteurs, to
Yeah.
use that term, who are like, no, no, I want the set, I want the practical thing.
Yeah.
And I think, in fairness to Star Wars, they were bringing in quite a few practical effects because they were kind of like, actually, it's better, you know.
Yeah. And
So
yeah, you're
yeah.
completely right. I don't wanna say, like, this is all like, all movies are doing this now, but you can definitely
Mm.
tell the movies that aren't and are.
Yeah, where it's all green screen,
It's all
exactly.
green
Like, it's
screen.
yes, and like going back to what Russell was saying in our first ever episode about Jurassic Park, like, when you have the sets that you've built and you've carefully thought it out with your production design team and everything, then you're planning your shots around that and you're storyboarding it. Whereas with green screen, it's easier to be like, or we'll just figure it out on the
Yeah.
day and be less deliberate with how your film is shot. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think I was looking at it thinking, well, they must have shot it in actual mission control in Houston. Apparently, NASA did actually offer it to Ron Howard, but he decided to build his own set. And I'm assuming it wasn't that it was a burn to NASA. I'm assuming it's that he was maybe like, no, no, I want to have a wall that I can remove to get
Yeah.
camera equipment in and out. It's more
Totally.
practical, maybe. So that is a sound stage, but it was apparently so realistic that, they were having quite a lot of the actual NASA staff coming on as consultants. I mean, Jim Lovell was an advisor, and he actually trained the actors at space camp and everything. But they had some of those Apollo 13 flight directors come on set visits, and Ron Howard says that. I'll quote it. He says, "Funny story. While we were on set, I was looking for Jerry. Jerry Griffin, one of these flight directors, because he had wandered off. He came back and said, I had to go to the bathroom. I thought I knew where I was, but I forgot we're not in Houston, we're in Hollywood. And the set looked so real to him.
He got confused.
He got fooled by the magic of Hollywood.
It happens to us all. Don't feel bad, Jerry.
So I really love that. Like they really went to great lengths. I mean, they had the same company, SpaceWorks, to build the interiors of those command and lunar modules and everything as well. So
And it totally pays off.
same spacesuits as well.
Yeah. What did you think about the whole 13 of it all?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because they comment on it at the beginning, don't they? Or what do you think about going up on the 13th? They're going, well, it's not the Friday the 13th. It's okay. There's a line where he says, oh, I had a black cat walk over a broken mirror under the lunar module ladder. It doesn't seem to be a problem. It's their tempting fate. They have the film has a series of things go wrong, obviously. There is this dodgy wire or whatever it is, or valve in the oxygen tanks, and then there's a cascade of things that go wrong. But then there's just like a few little other things that are just like, as luck would, unfortunately serve you. So, like, it's everything from the fact that Marilyn loses her ring in the shower on the
Mhm.
morning to launch. That did happen for real, but she got it back. The fact that, like, I think at one point, one of the mission control guys has got a pencil and it snaps.
Yeah.
He's like, hand me a pencil, it snaps immediately. There's a typhoon over the Pacific. Gary Sinise's character tests positive for measles.
Yeah. It actually ends up being good for his character because he ends up actually getting to the moon in the end.
Yes.
That in real life, he ends up, I think, in one of the last missions or the last mission to the moon, he ended up.
Okay.
So ended up-
He got there in the end.
yeah. So it's lucky for him. Anyway.
Lucky for him, but not so much for Kevin Bacon's character. Yeah, there's like a series of things that go wrong, aren't there? And yeah, it's a film about the power of science, technology, engineering, and maths. It's about logic and grit overcoming terrible odds. And yet there's this kind of superstitious element.
Yeah.
It's not developed that much, but there's just these
No.
ill omens, isn't there?
Yeah.
And Ed Harris's character, he's the flight controller, mission controller. He's got a special waistcoat that he wears for launch and for splashdown. And so it's sort of like, these are quite superstitious people, a bit like old-timey sailors who would, need to have
That's a
a
great example. Yeah.
cat come on deck or whatever it is. I can't remember what you had to do if you
Can't
were.
let a woman
it-
on a ship.
Oh, you can't have a woman on ship. Yeah. Is that really a superstition or is that just from a movie? Is that from Pirates of the
I
Caribbean?
think it's from Pirates of the Caribbean, I'll be honest. Because there were actually female pirates. So
Well,
there you go.
Artemis 2 has just shown you can have a woman
You
on the
can.
spacecraft and you can go the furthest that anyone's ever been and nothing goes wrong apart
Nope.
from, I think, maybe the space toilet that went a bit wrong.
And Outlook.
No, and Outlook.
That's
That's Microsoft's fault.
Yeah.
Bill Gates' fault. The toilet, that's the only thing that went wrong.
yeah. And who fixed it? The woman.
Did she?
Yeah, she did. She was the plumber.
Oh, okay.
She was the one that
She
fixed
was the
it.
plumber. She was
Yeah.
the plumber.
No,
There
I
we
thought that
go.
was interesting too, because to your point, even like in his monologue at the end, he was like, and what we find out is that it was a faulty wiring that was installed in the thing. And it happened 4 years ago before I was even assigned to Apollo 13.
Yeah.
So it was
it's like
fated. It was fated.
It is. It is really. I mean, all these things, everyone's got to do everything perfectly in order to make these extremely dangerous missions
Yeah,
not dangerous.
I know.
So there we go. Check your work, people.
Yeah.
The other thing that sort of occurred to me just very briefly was what on earth were all these families back at home doing, allowing their poor children to watch the coverage as their fathers
Yeah.
go up in space or come down in splashdown. And these poor children must be so traumatized.
Oh my God. They would never want to watch telly again. I mean, like, never again. And
The
like,
commentary is literally going, well, if we don't hear from them in the next 30 seconds,
they're
it's
dead.
probably that they're dead. and
then
these
like
poor
a minute
kids
and
are
a
watching
half
it.
goes by, and they're like, and she's like, the
Yes.
wife starts crying.
I know.
Kathleen Quinlan, like, I will say, what I get why she was nominated because like her performance is really subtle but very effective. Like that one scene I was already talking about.
Mm.
But in this scene, you just see in her eyes is pure terror, but it's quiet, almost like
Mm.
she's devastated, but also she has to be careful because she has her children with her and all this. And I thought
Gotta
she had a
stay
really
strong for the kids.
she's got to stay
Yeah.
strong for the kids, but obviously she's devastated. You see it in her eyes. So
Mm.
yeah, but to your point, it's like, why are you torturing your children? Do you not love them?
I did also like the fact they've got the family priest who sort of
Yes,
gives one of the kids a perfunctory pat on the shoulder, like,
I
"There,
know.
there. Your
Yeah,
dad may be dead already."
yeah, it's
You're like,
okay.
"Do something here."
Okay, should we go on to like what aged well, what aged terribly?
Mm, mm,
Where were the women and the black people in this film, except for the wives and the one token woman journalist who asked one question? There was one black person who I think he was a journalist, but other than that, and I bring it up because sometimes you can be like, well, they weren't there. Like they
mm,
just weren't in the room. That is incorrect. Women were a huge part of the space program. Apollo 11, they had computers, but the computers were actually people. They were women. They
mm.
were black women. There were black women involved. And I was like, well, maybe they weren't as involved with like Apollo 13. And that is not true. Women played a critical role in the safe return of Apollo 13, particularly in the trajectory calculation, software
Mm.
engineering, and systems analysis. Key figures included Frances Poppy Northcutt, the only woman in mission control. So there was a woman in mission control. Don't see that. Don't see her. And Judith Love Cohen, who helped design the abort guidance system that allowed the crew to navigate home. Where in the movie, it's just the men, it's just Tom
Yeah, it's the
Hanks.
men doing the
It's the
science
men
on the
doing
blackboard.
everything.
Yeah.
And Katherine Johnson, who was critical in Apollo 11, she provided critical expertise in navigating the stars during the Apollo 13 crisis.
Ah.
Margaret Hamilton, also a big part of Apollo 11. As the director of the software engineering division at MIT, she led the team that created the Apollo onboard flight software. So it's the same one used in Apollo 13, ensuring the computers can function in emergencies. Quickly, two other women I want to shout out: Ethel Bauer and Hazel Ballard. Hazel was actually a seamstress, which is very important.
Every little thing counts. We've
Every
just gone
little
through
thing
that.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it counts.
Yeah.
So, and then Ethel, she was a mathematician who helped calculate the free return trajectories required for the
Mm,
mission. So it's like you have all these women, and I think if we're thinking about if this was made today, I don't want to knock the film. I did enjoy it, but if this
mm.
was made today,
I think we would
we would have these
show those
women.
women, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So they actually did leave them out. I mean, I know that there are obviously various liberties taken with the real story, but there was a black team as well as a white team, as in the color coding.
Hmm.
Uh, and so presumably they were doing shifts because they got to sleep. So I did watch it and think, are they just awake permanently for about a week? But the team who were color coded black, they did a lot of the very important stuff that you see the white team doing, and so yeah, it seems that they obviously cut that out just because obviously you don't want to have two sets of mission control characters to get to grips with. There's already like 50 guys in that
Yeah.
set, but it's interesting now you've pointed out that there were all these women not just behind the scenes being computers, but actually in mission control on the deck and doing some of the stuff in the back rooms, doing the frantic maths.
Yeah.
They were historically there, and it was a choice presumably to leave them
Yeah.
out
Yes.
or or they were
Overlook
just
them.
overlooked
Exactly.
in the way that women so often are.
Yes.
So that is really interesting. And actually what struck me whilst I was watching the Artemis 2 coverage from NASA, and this is before I'd seen the film, I was I thought besides Christina Koch being the first woman to fly to the moon, I was struck by the fact that there were a lot of women in prominent positions in
Yeah.
mission control, their chief flight director is a woman, and there were women on the science desk, etc. I assumed when I was watching that coverage they were going to be, 95% men, and that women were
Yeah.
still in the, the glass
No.
ceiling, the glass space capsule. So I was impressed to see,
Nice.
particularly in a post-Trump age, that there were
Yeah.
more women in positions of prominence. And so then I watched this film and I was like, there are no women. And I knew about Margaret Hamilton. I knew that I'd
No.
seen a photo of her standing next to all of her paper, a stack of paper where she'd written the software for the Apollo 11 mission. And I will
Yeah.
get on to Katherine Johnson later. You're right. It's very kind of
Yes.
prominent, the fact that the female characters that we see are wives, the mother, who's senile, and daughters
Mhm.
who are rebelling, want to go to parties and wear
Yeah.
miniskirts.
Sad that the Beatles are breaking up, which I thought was
Oh,
funny.
well, it really,
I mean, we all are.
yeah, it puts a marker in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And they're there to reflect the personal cost of this mission, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're kind of like an emotional outlet. And I thought it was kind of interesting because obviously, as I said before, Jim Lovell and his crew they're very professional, and they're, apart from the bickering a couple of times, they're not very emotive. They're not outwardly emotive. They're kind of like,
Yeah.
I have a plan to go back home. I'm going to see my family again. You're like, I'd
Yeah.
be a wreck at this point. And we get to see the impact of the media on the family through the wives and daughters and children too. So they're an important component of the story,
Yeah.
but they have to do a lot of like gasping and watching and crying.
Yeah, they're in and listen, I understand in filmmaking, there are a
Uh,
lot of these characters that we see that are composites of real life people, and I understand that that happens, and there are decisions that need to be made. But how hard would it be to have a scene of that of
uh,
a bunch of women making calculations or having one woman
yeah.
in mission control because there was one.
It just wasn't a priority then, clearly.
It just wasn't a priority. And listen, this is why we can look at it in hindsight with a 2026 lens, I think if this was to be made today, you would have the women. The women would be
Yeah.
there.
I think the problem is
So to
that
me that was a
when
very
we
like
create stories that are otherwise very accurate of our history, in this case, recent history, but of
yeah,
anything in the past, and we erase certain people from it, people just the viewers, we just absorb that and go, well, that's
yeah,
how it was then. And so we get an idea of what people can or can't
yeah,
do and what people are allowed to do based on, on our cultural
yeah,
depictions of those events. And
yeah,
actually, so often when you actually look into it, as you have done, thank you, Molly, it turns out that women were there. It turns out that, in there were probably African Americans there. Well, you have already said
yeah,
that it often turns out that there's quite a lot of
yeah,
significant people kind of doing it, and they're often being overlooked or purposefully erased.
totally.
Like,
And in an era where, and I mean this era when people are just seeing something on screen and taking it as fact.
mm,
Again, representation matters, and that informs the stories that we tell about ourselves and about our
mm,
ancestors, right? And there were women there. There have been women involved with the space program since its infancy, and black women. And I think that's important to see because, a woman just went as far as a woman ever could, and that's a big deal. But like I'm tired of it being a big deal, you know? And
yes,
the
and it could seem as if it's only being done just for the sake of, oh, diversity,
yeah,
ticking a box, and yet actually, as you've just explained, if they'd had a woman in mission control in that film, it would have been historically
yeah,
accurate. So it was historically inaccurate not to show her.
yeah,
Maybe she was in the background or something. Maybe
no,
we just
it
didn't
wasn't.
spot her.
I looked, and it's just a little disappointing because Ron Howard went to such great lengths to make this historically accurate that he didn't do that.
Yeah.
What about you? What was something very 90s?
Something very 90s. Well, I've got a couple. So firstly, I thought the score by James Horner. Now, obviously, I thought James Horner, I know you, James Horner.
Aha,
You wrote the score for Titanic.
yeah.
Seared into my soul. From the age of 12. From the age of 12, oh, I was probably younger than
It was
that. No,
97, so you're
when did
11.
97? I was 11. Yeah. So I just felt like this was a very kind of classic 90s score. I listened to it again this morning. I don't love it. I'm not running back to listening to it again. It made me think quite a lot of A Few Good Men, although it
Yeah,
didn't have some of the kind of more 80s kind of
yeah.
synths at any point, I don't think. But it has horns and woodwind for this very kind of stately, heroic music. The score when there's the module launches is almost like a fanfare. It's got like military drumming and then it's got choral singing. I was like, like in Titanic.
Mhm.
And then later you have Annie Lennox adding a rather ethereal touch. She sings over the end credits, but she also sings over a piece of music when they're on the far side of the moon. So her voice represents the mysterious lunar goddess that these few eyes have been set upon. Yeah, it's very 90s, Annie Lennox. The other 90s thing is the appearance of Kevin Bacon.
Yes.
To me, Kevin Bacon he is the
He's the
90s
90s baby.
embodied. At the time that everyone used to play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon because he is so prolific and has been in so many films that you could apparently connect any actor to Kevin Bacon in less than 6 connections, frequently less
Yeah.
than that. IMDb used to list actors' Bacon number. It was a
I
thing.
didn't know that. Actually, I've met Kevin Bacon. I
So
mean,
you
briefly.
1 degree.
I've seen
I'm 2
I have 1
degrees.
degree. In
Mm.
Atlanta, an improv theater used to have the Bacon Fest every year to, raise money.
Yeah.
And it was silly, right?
Yeah.
It's a comedy theater, but they would sell literally just bacon by like cupfuls, and then that's how it kind of started. And anyway, it was really fun. And then one year, Kevin Bacon was in Atlanta filming something because a lot of things are filmed in Atlanta, and then all of a sudden you're there, and there's like this crowd forming, and I'm like, "Oh my god." I was like, "Is that Kevin Bacon?" I was like, "Oh my god, that's Kevin Bacon." And I just end up kind of like in front of him, and I'm like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." And he's like, "Oh, you know."
Well, in honor of Kevin Bacon, I thought we would have our own little game of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Let's do it. I like a game.
Okay, I've got 3 actors who are famous and make lots of money nowadays, and you got to guess how many degrees
Degrees. Okay.
of are they separated from Kevin Bacon.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm writing
so
this down.
it's not that deep. It's not that deep. Okay, first one. Dwayne Johnson, the highest grossing actor in Hollywood working
Okay.
today, I believe. He's the richest actor in Hollywood. How many degrees of separation is he away from Kevin Bacon?
Well, Dwayne Johnson was in Fast and Furious series with Vin Diesel. Vin
Mm-hmm.
Diesel was in Saving Private Ryan with Tom Hanks, and then obviously Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon. So what is that? So would that be 2 or would that be 3?
It sounds like you're saying 3. I'm going to take that as your answer. You're wrong because you can get to him in 2,
Ooh.
apparently. Obviously, this
Okay.
is according to Google. Google's a little bit dodgy these days, but I
Okay.
did double check the actual facts. So,
Okay.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson has worked with Ryan Reynolds in Fast and
Yep.
Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw,
Yep.
as you well know, who worked with Kevin Bacon in a film called R.I.P.D. Never heard of that film.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I have heard of that film. It was
yeah,
like I never saw it, but
no.
it didn't do well.
Not on the
Very
watch list.
cool.
I feel like Kevin Bacon, I mean, he was in a lot of prominent films in the 90s. I feel like his career has sort of dropped off in the
Yeah,
noughties and
I mean, to be
2010s.
fair, he made his money. He was in Hollow Man, and I feel like he did a couple seasons of I Love Dick.
Mm.
But also he's made some money. Let him he and his wife he's
Yeah.
been with for 30 years, 40 years, I think at this point.
He brought home the bacon, is what you're saying.
He brought home the bacon.
Yes. Okay, next actor. Leonardo
Okay.
DiCaprio. How many degrees is he separated? And I'm going to have to ask you to hurry it up.
Oh, yeah, okay, hurry it up.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Mm.
throw out some numbers here. I'm gonna say 1.
Two, again,
Two.
according
Okay.
according to the Google machine.
Okay.
Leonardo DiCaprio was in The Wolf of Wall Street with
Yep.
John Bernthal. I hope I'm
Yep.
saying his name right. John Bernthal was in The Air I Breathe with Kevin Bacon.
There you go.
Last one,
Last one. Okay.
Margot Robbie. How many degrees is she
Well,
separated from Kevin Bacon?
you could say three based off this one thing. Well, no, it's two again because she's like, because oh no, I don't know.
Do you want the answer?
Two, two,
Yes, it is 2, it is 2. Everyone is basically 2 degrees
two.
separated
Yeah.
from Kevin Bacon. I mean, I didn't try it with, like, someone like, Charlotte Rampling or something, but, uh, Margot Robbie was, in The Big Short with Steve Carell,
Yep.
who was in
Yep.
Crazy Stupid Love with Kevin
With
Bacon.
Kevin Bacon.
There we go. All paths lead back to Kevin Bacon.
Do you have any awards you want to give this film?
Yes, so most oblivious character,
Yes.
Jim Lovell's mother,
Oh,
who
yeah.
sweetly asks, "Are you boys in the space program too?" to Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin
Yeah.
a year after the moon landing.
Yeah.
Weirdest line is, "I could eat the ass out of a dead rhinoceros."
Yes. I had that
Bill
too.
Paxton says
Yes.
that.
I didn't have weirdest. I had like my favorite line.
Oh, well, there we go. Weird
Yeah.
slash favorite.
Great.
Yeah, apparently Gary Busey came up with it. He was doing a set visit. It's a callback to Point Break. And then I had best pair of glasses. Clint Howard is one of the mission control guys. It's a little headset as well. And his glasses,
Yes.
like they kind of reflect his screen, so you can't
Yes.
quite see his eyes.
Yes.
And I also quite like Lauren Dean as John Aaron, his flight
Yeah.
controller. He's got some
Yeah.
very good 70s nerd glasses.
Yes. Good hair. I think maybe that hair is
Yeah.
very 90s. I'm going to
Yes.
give best performance of a vest to Ed Harris's white vest.
Oh, like the waistcoat.
The waistcoat. Yeah. We call it, sorry.
Okay, because to me, a vest is like an
I
undershirt,
know.
like
Yeah,
John
I know.
McClane.
I know. Sorry. Yeah.
I was like,
Okay. So,
who's stripped down to his vest? I mean, Kevin Bacon maybe at the beginning.
yeah. Okay.
Um,
So for my UK listeners, best performance of a waistcoat goes to Ed Harris's waistcoat. To my American listeners, best performance of a vest, Ed Harris's white vest. And mission control. Well done, white vest. So what's your verdict on this, Chloe? Are you going to come back to this? Do you think it holds up? Would you recommend
mm.
it to people?
So, I mean, I think obviously it's a film that really emphasizes the technical aspects and the accuracy. And although it takes a few liberties, just with
Yeah.
sort of slimlining the cast down, adding a bit of drama. Apparently, all the thing with Swigert, can he dock the lunar module? Is he prepared for this with only 3 days to go? Apparently, he was really experienced. He developed the technology in some cases. So, like, they kind of added this drama, and actually, he was a very competent guy. As we said at the top, they slightly changed Houston. We've had a problem to we have a problem. Just 'cause it's more dramatic.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's very close to real life. And I I really do, I guess I really do find that very admirable. The fact that
Yeah.
they really worked hard. They had they built these sets that really did look very authentic. They did lots of practical effects that have, I think, really aged well. And so that is fantastic. I would say I think it's a bit of a sentimental film. And the stricken wives standing by helplessly, I mean, that's slightly undercut by the sort of workman-like professionalism of our main characters. Its aim is to tell a good adventure story
Yeah.
based very closely on life, to celebrate ingenuity and bravery and stoicism. And I think it really does that. And it makes you really understand and care about whether a tiny needle is going to move left or right. And I think that's a really clever storytelling trick to pull off. So
Yeah.
I think it's a really gripping movie. I have my caveats about it. That sentimentality slightly sticks in my craw, I
Yeah.
think. And perhaps I would have been a little bit more with it if they had more women doing other things than just be slightly weepy wives. But in fairness, Marilyn isn't that. She's not going to pieces. She could have
Right.
been worse.
She is yes. I think, yeah, poor Swigert. He died of cancer before this came out. So like
Oh,
he
did
couldn't even defend.
he?
Yeah, he could defend himself before. To be like, no, I was
God.
good at it.
History is written by the victors. Yes.
I think if you've never seen this, definitely go see it. I think it does hold up from a filmmaking standpoint because there's a lot of practical effects, because they put so much into it. It is a bit of a downer that because they put so much effort into its realism that they don't have women. So that is one thing that kind of does really bother me. And I also thought it was prophetic how they're like, this mission wasn't going to be that big of a deal in the media because they said, quote,
Mm.
NASA makes a moon landing boring. But now when we think about, yes, going this Artemis is a big deal, but now we have like think of SpaceX, rockets going off like every day. I mean, I don't know about every day, but regularly rockets are going off. They're going up in space. And this is just kind of part of our life. So it's kind of prophetic. But I will say, I'm glad I saw it now because I think it hit that last line of when he's like, I wonder who's going to be the next one up there. If I watched on the 95, I'd be like, "Oh, man, I wonder who's gonna be." But now because of Artemis, and because of who went up there, and because of who was in mission control, for me, that I was down for the sentimental bit at
Mm.
that moment for that line, and it hit
Yeah.
me more differently than it would have hit me in 95. So I really like
Mm.
that, and I'm glad I watched it now. If I watch it in a year, I probably won't feel the same. But yeah, I'd say it's hold up. Watch it if you've never watched it. If my husband left halfway through, not because he didn't like it, but because he was tired. Guys, it was
He
my
was like,
birthday.
I'm disappointed by the
Yeah,
representation of women in this
exactly.
film.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it was my birthday and he was like, "We've been day drinking. I'm tired. I'm going to bed." But if he wanted to like finish it, I would totally like sit there with him and like do some work
Mm.
or something while he finished it. So yeah,
That sounds like a bit of a burn, to be honest,
this is
Molly.
a burn. I would be in the room with it.
Yeah.
But no, if my mom came to visit, like I could watch this with my mom. I could watch this with
Yeah.
my dad. This is a
Yeah.
good film to watch with your parents. As we land our shuttle and get out our parachutes and see that ocean, that sweet, sweet landing ocean, what recommendations would you give someone if they like this or they didn't like it and they want to see something else? Or what would you
Yeah, I've
give?
got a few that I think dovetail really nicely with this film. I quite like space films, actually.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily understand what they're talking about all the time, but so for me, the most obvious film to watch next is Gravity from
Mm,
2013,
yeah. Great.
directed by Alfonso Cuarón. It stars Sandra Bullock, George Clooney, and Ed Harris in Mission Control again. He just loves that kind of a role. It's super exciting. It's proper nail biting. It's a depiction of a mission in space that goes wrong, horribly wrong, worse than even Apollo
Yes.
13. And Bullock's character has to perform these intensely heroic maneuvers and come up with ingenious ways to survive and to return to Earth. Or will she? And it's got all that wonderful survivalism and improvisation of Apollo 13 turned up to 11, and it stars a woman. Women can go in space now, and it's got an amazing soundtrack by Stephen Price as well. So, love that film. And then to call back to our earlier conversation about the women behind the scenes, or not so much in Mission Control in this period, going a little bit further back, in fact, is a film called Hidden Figures from 2016, directed by Theodore Melfi. And this dramatizes Katherine Johnson's work at NASA along with two other female mathematicians. It stars Taraji P. Henson, Octavia Spencer, Janelle Monáe. It's got Kevin Costner. He finally got finally
Guys.
got into a space film. Sure, he's been in several other things, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And Kirsten Dunst, and obviously also directly talks about and dramatizes how African American women were discriminated against systematically. In this case, they had to use the so-called colored bathrooms, and they were treated with great disdain by their white colleagues. And from what I remember, it's also good insight into how those kind of early spacefaring missions were kind of put together, and how, because this is sort of set little bit earlier
Hmm.
than the Apollo 11 mission, I believe.
Yeah. And it leads up right into Apollo 11, and they have to lean on Taraji B. Henson's character because she's the one doing all the maths to get them there and get them home.
Yes.
But anyway, very good. Good reco.
Yes. And then Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World from 2003, directed by Peter Weir,
No.
but it's not a spaceship. It's it's a sailing ship. It's a warship. Stars Russell Crowe, Paul Bettany, and various others. And I thought about this because, it's survival and it's a mission on this totally different kind of ship, set during the Napoleonic Wars. But like Apollo 13, it's depicting a crew in life or death peril, carrying out their duties stoically, in this case, while under cannonball fire or in storms, far away from home, and every last repair they make has to be carried out with ingenuity. There's also lots of navigation by using, sort of instruments. There's maths
Yeah.
done under pressure. And then I also thought Oppenheimer,
Okay.
Christopher Nolan, and the reason why is because this is almost like the
Mm.
flip side of of
Ingenuity. Yeah.
American engineering and technology. Yes, scientists and engineers working in a sort of hive-like community, developing, in this case, the atomic bomb, a weapon of mass destruction. And what I appreciated about this film was that it spends a lot of time grappling with Oppenheimer's moral culpability on multiple levels, personally, politically, and obviously morally. And he, really ends on this kind of vision of horror, which I think most of us have nightmares about pretty much nightly at the moment, of what he's unleashed into the world. And so I just thought, as a corrective or a balance to the, all the celebration of what American scientists do. Here's another
Gotta have
thing
balance.
that they made earlier. Not to, I mean, like we're all at it in various ways, but the reality is we're not in a very safe world because of it. So I thought those would all be worth watching
Yeah.
and pondering.
Yeah, I need to see Master and Commander. I never saw it when it came out, but a lot of people
Great.
yeah, a lot of people I'll admit at the time I was like, "This looks like a dad movie."
It so is.
That's okay. You can like a dad movie, but no, there are a lot of people I know that I'm like, "Really?" Who have been like, "No, it's a really good film."
It's a dad movie for girls, is what I'll say.
Okay, nice.
I don't know how else to put it. Like
Great. Another film I
women
can watch
love
with my
it.
parents. Love it. So I'm just going to give two recommendations. What my first recommendation was actually one of the other inspirations I had for doing this, and that's Project Hail Mary. That's currently in theaters. If you're currently listening to this at time of release, Andy Weir. He is a sci-fi writer who tries to get as scientifically accurate as he can. He previously wrote The Martian, which was at the time very scientifically accurate. Although he says since then, some of the stuff that he wrote about in The Martian has been proven. Like, for example, he had to make water on Mars. Well, since he wrote it, it's been discovered there's actually water in Mars, like underneath. But Project Hail Mary is another, using lots of maths, using a teacher to save humanity, not just, trying to get to the moon. At this point, they're trying to get to another star. Our star is in trouble, and I'm not spoiling anything, but I thought about it because it just again it makes you really excited about science and it's hopeful. And I think, in a time that we find ourselves, I found it ending on a very hopeful note and a note of looking maybe in the best of people and finding something to fight for. So I really, if you like the maths, you like the science, you want some sci-fi and a good friendship. Project Hail Mary. If you can in the theaters, I know Chloe saw it in IMAX, which I didn't, but I can imagine how
It was great.
I
It was
can
great.
only oh my God, I bet.
Yeah.
But if you can see it in
Yeah.
theaters, see it in theaters. But if not, definitely see it
Yeah.
either way.
And can I just add that I think The Martian, the adaptation of his earlier novel, is really worth seeing because that is about astronauts or an astronaut sciencing the shit out of this deadly situation. That's a quote.
Yeah.
But the author Andy Weir says that this film Apollo 13 was really influential on him writing the book that film is based on. So there's a
Yeah.
direct link there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And then the other one I'm going to recommend is Interstellar. Again, this is a sci-fi film, but a lot of scientists have said that it's the most scientifically accurate. If someone did go to a black hole or you did visit another planet, it's the most scientifically accurate one of the most scientifically accurate sci-fi films out there. And again, it's just the score is beautiful. Again, I wish I saw that. I didn't see that on IMAX. Definitely saw it in the theater.
You
I
did
did
see it
see
on
it.
the big screen.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's beautiful. But again, another film about using science to save humanity and get humanity off planet Earth actually, and going to space. And it's just a beautiful movie with a beautiful soundtrack. And yeah. So that's where we find ourselves. That is, we find ourselves in this little ball of hydrogen gas and oxygen and all that in space. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop now. This has been Total 90s Recall, watching Apollo 13. Are you going to watch Apollo 13? Have you watched it recently? Let us know. You can tell us on Instagram at Total 90s Recall. That's Total 90s Recall. You can email us at total90srecall@gmail.com. We would love to know. Also, we want to hear what you would like to maybe us watch next or hear about next. We're also on Letterbox, so give us a follow. We're putting our recommendations on Letterbox. We'll follow you back, and of course on YouTube. I'm loving the comments we're getting on YouTube. I'm loving it. So next time your space capsule breaks in space, tell your fellow astronauts about Total 90s Recall. I've been Molly,
And I'm Chloe.
and we'll see you at the movies.